Three-letter word, war. It's a big deal when it comes to how Russia describes its invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin has insisted on calling it a special military operation. Calling it a war inside Russia is punishable with jail time. Now listen to President Putin at a press conference on Thursday.
Our goal is not to spin the flywheel of military conflict, but, on the contrary, to end this war. We have been and will continue to strive for this.
But one US official cautions to not read too much into it, saying he believes it may have been a slip of the tongue. Meanwhile, we're waiting for confirmation that Ukrainian President Zelensky is back home after a visit to the United States on Wednesday. He addressed US lawmakers and secured a new batch of US weapons, including the Patriot missile defense system. He later said his military is getting the equipment it needs.
The victory will be ours. Glory to every warrior of ours. Glory to everyone who protects our country. We bring to Ukraine, to Donbas, to Bakhmut, and to the South decisions which our defense forces awaited.
And Ukrainian troops on the front lines Thursday agreed with that, saying the more heavy weapons they have, the sooner they'll win. Jill Dougherty is a CNN contributor as well as an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. She's also CNN's former Moscow bureau chief and has spent decades reporting on and from Russia. Jill, it's good to see you.
Hey, John.
Okay, so for more than 300 days, the Kremlin has described the invasion of Ukraine as a special military operation. Anyone calling it a war in Russia faces jail time, and hundreds are in jail for doing just that. So was this just a slip of the tongue by Putin, or was there more to it?
You know, I was really, I can tell you, shocked when I saw that, because, I mean, people are in prison because of using that very word. And it's really, you know, just something that could never, ever happen. And then all of a sudden, President Putin uses the word, I think, twice in public. So what does it mean? I mean, okay, it could be a slip of the tongue, or another idea could be that the rhetoric coming out of the Kremlin has changed a bit. And now they're talking about kind of, you know, the end of an operation to pacify Ukraine. And now it's really an existential war against the world and against, I should say, against NATO and the West. And so I think when you get to that point, it feels a little bit counterintuitive to just say, well, it's still a special military operation. But who knows? I mean, we'd have to ask President Putin, wouldn't we?
Well, yes, he's difficult to get to these days, apparently.
Yes.
He used the war word in one context of wanting an end to the war in Ukraine. Here's a little more from the Russian president.
This leadership of Ukraine forbade itself to negotiate. Sooner or later, of course, any parties in a state of conflict will sit down and negotiate. The sooner this realization comes to those who oppose us, the better. We never gave up on it.
For the record, the Ukrainians broke off talks because of the ongoing Russian war crimes inside Ukraine. But is this an olive branch from Putin, or part of a Russian scheme that Zelensky actually warned about, where the Russians try to create this impression they want peace? It's those damn Ukrainians who want to keep on with the war.
Exactly. I don't think that this is really anything new. The Russians have been saying this for quite a while, but there's no real action in this. And one of the ideas, at least on the Western side, is that Russia wants to kind of freeze the conflict, make it difficult for Ukraine to move, to do anything, to continue this operation, pushing back against Russia, and then hopefully somehow bring it to a close. But I don't think that this is really very much new. What's behind it? I don't think really at this point very much.
Putin also said there would be no limit on spending for the military for the war. And that's a move which some have said will please some of the more hawkish elites in Russia. They seem to be the ones who have a lot of influence over Putin. Last month, Newsweek reported Russian elites in secret talks to get rid of Putin. The month before that, foreign policy, can Putin center hold? The elites used to need the Russian president, now he needs them. And we have this, Russia's elites are starting to admit the possibility of defeat. That's from the Carnegie Endowment. Just a few instances of the elites, being reported on and their role in all of this. So who are the elites and why do they have so much influence?
Yeah, it's a word that I think is bandied around, but not defined very much. I mean, essentially, if you look at people who really understand Russia, and these are Russians who understand their government. I'd say they would probably point to two elites, one of which would be, let's say, the technocrats, the people who know how to do things. The head of the central bank, Ms. Nabiullina, who is a very astute person who has really pretty much rescued the Russian economy. But those people, those technocrats, don't have very much influence at all right now. So the people who really do are the siloviki. And the word, that the root of that, sila, means power. So these are the power people. These are the people who are in charge of the military, intelligence, and operations, to spies, etc., the security services. And these are the people who really, as far as we know, have the greatest influence on Vladimir Putin. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. Number one, he comes from that world. He was a KGB officer. He headed the KGB. So he comes from that world. He also, and we have to remember, when he started this war, he kept it in a very closely contained group of people who were essentially the military. But some of the military didn't even know that this war against Ukraine was going to happen. So his group of people who now have any type of influence, many of them are, at least as hard, if not harder, than Vladimir Putin himself. So he's kind of in this echo chamber, from what we understand, echo chamber of people who are paranoid about the West, have conspiracy theories, and believe that Russia is surrounded by enemies.
That explains a lot. Jill, thanks for being with us. Good to see you again.